school. I'm a junior, and one of the finals I'm taking is a sociology final.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a fun class.
Yeah, that's really cool that they offer that in high school.
I'm taking it outside.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's hard now. Yeah.
I see. No wonder. I was like, wow, that's a really advanced high school. Well, good luck with finals.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here and giving us some of your time today, because I know it's important for you guys to be studying, so I appreciate that. Of course, you know me, Letty Hernandez, Program Coordinator. I'm excited to introduce both of you to Sarah Hewick, who works at Full Harvest. And you've been there about 2 or 3 years now. Is that correct, Sarah?
I think I'm at like a year and a half right now. So I'm still pretty new. Yeah.
Good. And then we also have Darlene Ruiz, who is also in food innovation and food waste and waste in general at Salinas Valley Recycles. And you are the program, do you run the programs? Is that correct, Darlene?
So I'm one of three. Our title is Resource Recovery Technician, and my focus is more on schools. But similarly to what Sarah just said, I've been on the job for a little over a year. So I was kind of just getting into high gear with getting trained in actual schools when COVID hit and kind of put everything on pause. So it's just kind of been making my own way, I guess, in the industry with all this virtual stuff. But it's been interesting.
Great. And they're going to go ahead and do a presentation for us today and talk a little bit more about their careers and their career pathway out of high school. I know this is a topic we've been talking about a lot with professionals about how they got from high school to their current position and what's inspired them or motivated them or been a challenge for them. So if you guys want to take some notes and have some questions towards the end, that would be great. And I have my dog right here and she's being a little wild, so sorry if she's bugging, but we can go ahead and start with you, Sarah. Are you doing a presentation or?
I'm not. Sorry, I didn't prepare any slides, but so I'll just chat, and I do have like 1 or 2 things I'll just show you on my camera here. So.
All right, we'll go ahead and take it away.
Okay, thank you, Letty. I appreciate the introduction, and it's good to be here with you, Cynthia and Alejandro. So let's see. My name is Sarah Hewick. I'm calling in from my home in Watsonville, so not too far from where I think most of you are all calling in from today. And I am the Grower Innovation Manager at a small ag tech startup called Full Harvest Technologies. So what our goal is at Full Harvest is to essentially interrupt how produce is bought and sold. So the produce industry, which is fruits and vegetables and big ag in Salinas Valley, the produce industry is typically bought and sold by people calling each other on phones and saying, I need a truckload of celery and I need it tomorrow in LA. And then someone else goes, okay, I have a truckload of celery. It's $11.80. Is that good enough? And then they call each other 3 more times to work out all the details. And then, the celery starts getting shipped down to LA. So what Full Harvest is trying to do is do all of that online. So on a website. So kind of interrupt just this very hands-on phone call heavy system. And then I would say our secondary priority, along with kind of just interrupting that selling process, is reducing food waste. And we think we can reduce food waste by interrupting how produce is bought and sold, because we can basically create an easier avenue to sell things that might not have been worthwhile for the grower and the sales team to put a lot of effort into before. But if you can just kind of have it posted on, the equivalent of a Craigslist or an eBay, that you have, ugly number 2 celery also, as well as the beautiful number 1 that's ready to go to the grocery store, that we can actually save a lot more food that wouldn't normally get taken off the farm. So what I specialize in and what Full Harvest specializes in is called on-farm food loss. So it's the food that gets wasted before it ever leaves the farm. So it's the stuff that never even gets harvested. You know, we have a major labor shortage in agriculture. There's just not enough people to pick crops. And so if you have 3 less people show up to work on Monday than you had the week before, and then usually that would mean you're picking less fruits or vegetables. And so some stuff just never gets picked because of that reason, and some stuff never gets picked because the growers don't think they'll have a market for it. So if there's cauliflower that's starting to get a little yellowish instead of being like bright white or that bright cream color, they just won't even pick it. And so what we're trying to do at Full Harvest is encourage them to pick it, because we'll help sell it to someone who's making, you know, like a cauliflower pizza crust, and it doesn't matter what color it is, because you'll never be able to tell after they kind of grind it up and put a bunch of sauce and toppings and stuff on it. So that's kind of what Full Harvest does. I'll show you, we had a really exciting week last week, actually. So we're a very young company. We've only been around for about 5 years. And we just had our first like major product launch, food product launch, just directly to consumers. We've been selling produce for 4 or 5 years, but often, you know, they just use us to be their like produce broker, and then no one really cares what happens to it afterwards. But this time we actually helped the company create like a marketing plan and actually market against the fact that the food would have gone to waste without our services of ensuring that it would have been wasted food. So we launched this yogurt called Too Good Good Save, and the Meyer lemons that were used in the yogurt are verified rescued, which is this is like a little piece of the package. I just grabbed it out of my recycling bin. Hopefully, I'm sorry, I didn't realize my background would cause some issues. But so we call this food that would have gone to waste verified rescued. So it's rescued as in we saved it from going to waste. And not all the food we sell is verified rescued, only things that we feel 100% certain. And we figure that out by doing, yeah, cool. We figure that out by doing like interviews with the grower to make sure we understand the market conditions at the time of harvest or at the time we're buying. And we create a custom specification. So a specification for a product is something like, if you guys are buying a t-shirt on Amazon, it's the thing that says, oh, this t-shirt's a large, it's made with 100% cotton. It's all the like details that explain exactly what you're buying. And so we write those custom specs up about that they're allowed to sell ugly lemons. So actually my background are Meyer lemons. They're the lemons that went into the yogurt, and you'll notice they don't even look like lemons. They look like oranges, and that's not a filter. It's literally because they were so ripe, they'd been on the tree for so long that they were going to waste, basically. And we said, oh, we can deal with ripe lemons. We're just gonna puree them. So we literally just turned them into a smoothie, and it didn't matter that they were too ripe. So that's a little bit of what we do. How did I get here? I think probably is the next part. So my background, I grew up on a small farm in upstate New York. So New York State is actually a lot like California. There's like a major city, and then the rest is just farmland, but people don't even realize that, you know, when you talk to someone and say, oh, I live in California, they think, oh, they live in LA or they live in San Francisco. But as we all know, that's not the case at all. And so New York's the same way. And so I grew up on a farm in upstate New York. We actually mostly did hay, so like Timothy and alfalfa grasses, and then we'd sell them to people with livestock. But we also had some livestock ourselves. And then I would say 4-H and FFA were very key to my career path. I was very active in both of those organizations. And even though I grew up on a small farm, my parents really didn't want me going into agriculture. I think they felt like agriculture was what people who didn't go to college did. You know, and that was definitely a struggle a little bit, because I really wanted to stay in agriculture, and My parents weren't well, actually my dad supported it, but my mom was really unsupportive. She felt like, you know, if you go to college, you're supposed to, you know, become a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. But I think now, looking back, she realizes it was a good choice, because I think I've had a very fulfilling career, and you know, it's provided me a lot of opportunities. And so I studied like a kind of general ag major called agricultural sciences at Cornell University, which is a major research university in New York State. So for me, going to Cornell was what like going to UC Davis would be like for, you know, a Californian. So it kind of sounds really, I don't know, like luxurious or something here, but it's not quite, it wasn't quite as crazy being from there. So, and then I realized as I kind of started working and studying, I had gotten a research assistant job for a professor while I was in school, and I just really loved doing research. And research is where you kind of find a problem and you need to figure out how to solve it by essentially doing little experiments, like a little bit at a time, and just seeing if you can find a difference. And so I was doing research in essentially reduced tillage agriculture. So we were trying to figure out, oh, if we plant, you know, an oat cover crop, will that get us a little bit higher, you know, better soil health for next year and things like that. And I just really loved that kind of work, and that made me realize, so it's kind of like certain things kind of help you along on your path. And I'd say my path was just knowing like I wanted to be an ag, but not much more than that. And I liked plants more than animals. That I knew too, because I'm a little squeamish. So I always had my own, like I had dairy goats, and I hated like giving them shots and stuff. So I was like, I'm getting away from these animals. I like plants better. So I knew that was kind of all I knew. And then I started doing research and really loved that, where, you know, it's kind of like success in research is more just like about learning and reporting well. And it's not so much about, oh, did you hit your numbers? Did you sell 3,000 units of blah, blah, blah. And I really liked that kind of like focus on learning. So I really enjoyed that. And that made me realize I actually wanted to go to graduate school after I finished my bachelor's degree. And so that helped me. And then if, to go to grad school, I needed some slightly different classes and a little bit different focus, because my program, the ag science program, was very broad. So you kind of took a class in everything, a class in food science, a class in animal science, a class in crop science. So then I added a plant science major so I could get a little deeper in the subject area, and took a little more math and chemistry and like just a little more on the hard sciences, so that I would be set up well so I could get into grad school. So I stayed at Cornell and did a master's degree in horticulture science, is what they call it. And so that was a 2-year program. And I really, I thought it was great. It was, you know, it was a long time to be in school, and it was a little tedious at times, but I am now looking back, it's been like 7 or 8 years since I finished my master's degree. And I'm really glad I did it then, because life happens later on, and I do find it's hard. I know a lot of people do it, and they should be so proud of themselves that they go back to grad school. And I kind of hope someday I'll go back to grad school too, but I do think it's hard once you're out in the real world to go back. So I am very glad I did my master's degree while I was already in the kind of school momentum. And then after that, I kind of like, how did I get here? Like, how did I end up in the Central Coast? Driscoll's, the large berry company, they recruited me when, like, not too long after I finished grad school to come out and take a job doing essentially like grower communication for their research team. So I had done a lot of that during my grad program, where I'd write articles about some of the research that they were doing at the experiment station I worked at. And so that's how I ended up here in Watsonville. And then I worked at Driscoll's for a couple of years, and it was very much like a desk job. And all I did was kind of like I did a lot of like translating from different languages and different agronomy teams globally. And it was very fun and I learned a lot, but I also was a little like, oh, I want to get back in the field. I want my boots on the ground. So I kind of did a few other things since then, but I haven't left, Watsonville yet. And I've also worked as a researcher at Dole Fresh Vegetables. And I've worked at Cabrillo College and like more an academic role. We started an ag tech degree at Cabrillo, and I still actually work for Cabrillo very, very part-time a little bit now, and we're starting an ag business degree. So maybe you guys can keep those in mind. I know Hartnell's a little more accessible from Gonzales, but Cabrillo does have ag programs now too. I think, Letty, do you feel like I covered everything, or is there something you'd like me to add?
No, I think you've covered it all. Students, do you have any questions?
I have one.
Go ahead.
So you mentioned that like some of the crops like cauliflower, you use it for pizza or the lemon for the yogurts, but like what else would you use it for, like the crops that they don't want?
Oh yeah, this is a great question, Cynthia. So I'd say all the produce we basically sell is going into processed foods. So it's something that doesn't, it's not, you're not going to get the whole head of cauliflower or the whole lemon. And that's kind of why we can focus on these crops that are ugly and wouldn't have a home otherwise. So I think the industry we serve the most is the cold pressed juice industry. So any of the like basically the fancy juices that like when you go to Starbucks, all those juices that are fruit and vegetable based that are at a Starbucks, they're actually a big buyer of ours, that company. So kind of all those like fancy juice companies, they're a big buyer. And then we also sell to a lot of sauerkraut companies. So anything where they're gonna chop it up or blend it up and do something else with it. We sell cauliflower to a company that makes pizza crusts. And well, actually anything with the rice. They're basically doing the ricing. And so anything that has rice is made with rice cauliflower. They make a lot of different things. And then ingredient companies. This was something that was new to me when I started this job. I never really thought about it, but a lot of these snacks and like higher processed foods that just have like a lot of ingredients, they don't actually buy fresh produce. That like, if you're making a snack bar or something, like they might not be buying fresh produce, but they might be buying either like a frozen puree or a powder. That was one that I didn't really realize was done, but like someone will buy like pureed Meyer lemons from us, and then that company will literally like dry it out into a powder, and then they'll sell the powder to someone else who's gonna make a lemon bar or like something like that. So we sell to these big ingredient companies, juice companies, things like that. And one of the our founder was not from ag. It's kind of interesting. She had worked at one of these juice companies and was just like astounded at the fact that they had to buy like this really expensive organic produce to just stick in a blender. And that was kind of how she got the idea for the company, was just like, well, there's gotta be like apples that have, like a wormhole in them that I could buy to put in our juice. I don't want perfect apples type of thing.
Oh, that's so interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question.
I have another question. What's one of the biggest challenges you face in your company?
Oh, great question. That is such a good question. Let's see. The biggest challenges we face. Well, I think because we're really young, we're what they call startups. So what a startup means usually is that someone lent you a bunch of money because they believed in your idea, even though you're not really making enough money to survive yet. So I think for startups, the challenge is we work really fast because actually for us, I think we have like 7 investors, gave us a bunch of money a few years ago. And now they're basically, a lot of times they act as like a business consultant. So they come and meet with us a couple times a year and tell us, oh, you know, your sales aren't high enough. You need a head of engineering, or you're not making enough progress. So I think at a startup, one of the biggest challenges is like for us, you know, our reality is rooted in ag, and only a few people on the team are like me and have like strong backgrounds in agriculture. And then we have all these investors who none of them are from agriculture. They're all from tech. You know, they're people who are investing in software and things like that. And just kind of bridging that gap and working fast enough to essentially use their money well and try to get to the point where we're actually going to be profitable, like on our own and without this kind of extra cash influx. So I think the way that affects me personally is like, sometimes instead of doing what I would normally do in a day, which like a normal day for me might be calling 5 Meyer lemon suppliers and making sure that the crop is coming along and we're all set on a spec, you know, some of the specifications, so that, you know, like what size they are going to be, things like that. Or I do a lot of our sustainability work, so our environmental benefit calculations and things like that. And then some days I'll just get like a call from my boss that's like, oh, so-and-so investor wants to know how many large farms we work with. And I'm just like, oh, okay. And then, you know, I have to drop everything and go through our entire list of farms and figure out, you know, get them the data they need. So it can be hard to kind of like balance, like actually doing what feels like it should be your job and kind of appeasing these like investor people, but you have to appease them because they're the ones that are allowing you to have a job, basically.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also have a follow-up question too, in regards to like how you have been doing during this pandemic and during COVID, and what trends are you seeing happening or what's new this year?
Oh, great question, Letty. So I think COVID's been really hard for everyone. So, you know, congrats to all of you for just being here today. I think some of the trends we see in food in ag is actually citrus. So, you know, lemons, oranges, grapefruit is having like this big rally, and they're doing really well. So all my citrus farmers are doing great. And it's because consumers think, oh, oranges, vitamin C, I gotta stay healthy. So actually like citrus farmers doing great, but that's not, you know, what we have here on the coast. And almost everyone else is not really doing that well, because a lot of farms went to what's called food service. So they're like a larger scale pack that goes to a restaurant or a school, things like that. And then all the schools, you know, closed down. And after, I'd say probably a month, they all kind of started reordering because they started sending the food home to students and doing kind of food distribution. But in those first few weeks, when we all went into shelter in place, they're just like, all of a sudden there wasn't any orders for food. It was so bizarre. All the farmers just had food, piles of food, just, you know, piling up in their cooler or in the field, and no one to buy it, because the restaurants were like, well, we don't need food. We were just told we have to close. And same thing with schools. And so it's been really challenging for growers. And they all had to switch from a lot of things that go to food service. They all had to switch and try to go to retail. So one of the things that happened was a farm like this farm where I get these lemons from might have had 20-pound bags that they'd send to a restaurant. And then they had a great decrease in requests for those. So they switched and tried to get a ton of 3-pound bags, which is what a consumer like you or I might buy. So there's been lots of changes. It's been a rough time. And, you know, not to mention COVID and all of the farm workers being at risk because they're working in close conditions. And yeah, I think we've really disrupted the ag industry, and it'll be really interesting to see how it goes back or doesn't go back. And I don't know what will happen, you know, like in the future, but it has, like, things are quite different, I think, now than a year ago.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Well, we can go ahead and move on and talk with Darlene Ruiz a little bit about what she does. and how she got where she's at.
Yes, thank you. That was very interesting. And I actually did have a question for Sarah, so I don't know if we have time for me to ask
Go
that
ahead,
before.
yeah, please.
I'm just wondering, Sarah, how do you I guess, how do you guys, I know you mentioned you used to work kind of as like a broker and now that has kind of switched and you said you do like online stuff. So I'm guessing, I guess, how you are the middle person, linking the people who have the produce and the people who are going to receive it. Like, for example, is there a way for restaurants to get a hold of you? You know, do they create an online account or how does it work?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. Actually, we probably have like 30 seconds, right, Letty? I'll just share, I'll just show you our website. I should have done this before. Yeah, so this is our website, Full Harvest, and like if a restaurant wants to buy produce from us, they can come here and sign up and just answer that. I don't know if this will work. Oh, it did work, because I'm like, I don't know if it knows that I'm me, and then it'd be like, why do you need this? But it would, you can say I'm a produce buyer, I'm a supplier, which is a farmer, or I'm just interested in learning more about you. And then people can get on our email list. I would say right now we are not super well suited to serve restaurants unless it's really big, because we do focus right now on essentially like full truckloads of produce. A minimum order for us is 1 pallet. A pallet's usually 700, 800 pounds of a single item. So certainly there are probably some restaurants for a key ingredient or something that could totally buy from us. But we are, I'd say, set up better to serve bigger customers at this point.
How about for suppliers? Do you also have minimums?
Yeah, suppliers, we it's the same, it's 1 pallet minimum. So they would have to have at least 1 pallet of an item and a some sort of third-party food safety certification. Those are kind of like the bare. Anybody that's like considers himself a farm would probably have both of those things. It's more like, but it has been tricky. We were trying during earlier in COVID, we were doing a box program where we were making boxes of produce to send up. We were working with Oakland Unified School District, and they really wanted us to work with small farms. But that was a really big challenge for us because we only use 18-wheelers, full tractor trailers. And so we don't have the capacity. We don't have like a van that, I can drive around and go to 13 farms and pick up a case of produce. We have like truckers in an 18-wheeler. So it's very hard for us to work with very small farms. But one of the things we did find we were able to do is we actually worked with Coke Farm in San Juan Bautista, who buys from a ton, I think over 100 very small farms. So they're like an aggregator. And then we can work with a company like that so that we can actually, because it was very important to Oakland Unified that we were working with small farmers. So we kind of found a way around it. But yeah, right now we work better with, I'd say, medium-sized farms and large-sized farms, just so we're going to places that essentially have, a forklift. It seems really funny, but it's really like those little logistical things that kind of make or break the system type of thing. So we do have some important kind of scale sizing to figure out. And I do hope that someday we'll figure out how to work with some smaller farms because they have waste too. So if we can figure out how to aggregate in a county or something like that and then distribute from there, that would be really good.
Very cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
All right. Well, then I guess I'll get started on my presentation. And I actually found it easier to just have some slides. So, minimize. Sorry, I'm trying to minimize the little screens. Yeah, so my name is Darlene Ruiz, and I'm a resource recovery technician with Salinas Valley Recycles. And we basically manage the local landfill. And we have a transfer station in Salinas as well as one in King City. And we also do a lot of outreach and education. I'm not sure if any of you have ever come across one of our TV commercials or maybe one of our radio ads. And this is a map of the eastern portion of the Monterey County, which is what we service. We don't do all of Monterey County, just half of it. And our landfill is shared with over 270,000 people who are residing in these cities and unincorporated areas of the county. So last year, we had a waste characterization study. It happens about every 10 years, and basically it's research on what type of waste we receive. And approximately 72% of the overall waste could either be recovered or is potentially recoverable, meaning we're still finding ways with innovation and technology to find ways to recover new things. Like certain plastics are not recyclable, so trying to find ways to still recover those rather than have them go to the landfill. And so as you can see, the green portion, which is the largest, is compostable material, which basically is food waste, yard waste, and that's about 40%. We do have 16% that is recyclable, about 5% that is construction and demolition, and then the other 12% that I mentioned could be potentially recoverable. And so today we're going to focus a little bit more on the compostable, specifically the food waste. So each year in the United States, the food we waste costs about $278 billion. And so that could feed over 260 million people. It's a really large amount of food waste. If you want to think about it in terms of like visually, 39 million is equivalent to 13 football stadiums. I'm sorry, I should say 39 million cubic meters of landfill space is equivalent to 13 football stadiums, which are filled up basically with the food that we waste each year. And this is about $1.9 billion in tipping fees. Tipping fees are what people pay when they come and throw garbage away to landfill. So it's almost $2 billion that goes to waste. And this is about 193 million tons of greenhouse gases that are emitted just from the food waste alone, because food waste, organic waste in general, emits methane and carbon dioxide, which contribute to greenhouse gases. And so schools are unfortunately one of those which have a lot of food waste. And so this graphic here is from the USDA, and it shows some suggestions for schools on how to try to minimize their food waste, because about 31% of the food supply goes uneaten. And we're just really trying to make recommendations, like for example, even just extending lunch periods from 20 to 30 minutes could reduce food waste, or switching recess from having it instead of after lunch, having it before, and, just trying to make progress in certain areas to try to get schools and other big producers of waste to participate and make effective changes. So why Divert? Not only because, as you just saw, it has a really big impact in our environment, but it's also the law. So in recent years, AB 1826 and SB 1383 have come about in California. And SB 1383 actually just came into effect this year. And pretty soon you're going to start seeing that you'll not only have access to yard waste, but also food waste that'll be collected through curbside, which are the haulers that come by and pick up the trash. So the AB 1826 one you can see here, as of January 2020, which was the beginning of this year, any business that basically produces more than 2 cubic yards of solid waste, any sort of trash, is required to basically have organic waste set up. So you'll start to see businesses having not only the recycling cart and the trash, but also organic, like you see in the SB 1383 waste collection services. you're going to have a green or maybe some other colored bin. And this is just starting to roll out, so it's something you're going to start to see more if you haven't seen it yet. So right now, it's a lot of the work that we're doing is just informing businesses, working with schools on transitioning to how to make it work and training their staff. And so part of the changes that we implemented to be able to handle all of the increase in incoming food waste rather than it going to landfill is we got a depackager. So this turbo Separator T30 is a special machine that takes packaged produce. I mean, as you know, the Salinas Valley is known as the salad bowl, provides so much produce, and especially in packages, since it's got a long way to go, they try to keep it fresh for longer. And so a lot of times when the produce doesn't get sent with enough time to reach the markets and give them time to sell, even though it may not be expired yet and it's still good, it has to go to waste. And so rather than having it be buried in the landfill, we are able to recover all of the organics and just throw away the plastic, the trash. So basically this is how it works. We have the truck that comes by and dumps, so like the big container that they have at, for example, Taylor Farms or Dole or those big companies that have these, since they're required by law to have separated organic waste from the regular waste or the recyclables, we're able to get the food waste and then debag it. So as you can see there in the middle picture, you can see all of the just separated organics from inside. And then the last picture here is just the empty plastic coming out of the other side. So that's one way that we're trying to recover food waste. And then what happens with that is it gets composted. So it kind of turns into like a salsa looking material. And we recently opened this aerated static pile compost pad, which rather than the regular windrows for a compost facility, we have these pipes that blow air underneath these columns. And so it's able to make the process go faster. And this facility is designed to process up to 75,000 tons of food waste per year, basically. You can see like the compost pile there. And we have this division because there's two different air sides. One is high and one is low pressure. And then another thing that we also do is we have a garden at the Sun Street transfer station, which we call Jardín El Sol. And we have compost workshops normally during the year. So we teach community members about how they can have their own backyard compost, or also vermicompost, which is composting with worms. I think some of you or all of you should have gotten some worms from Letty. Our red worms are called red wigglers, and they're not like earthworms. They're special in the sense that they have a big appetite, they reproduce quickly and grow well in confinement, and they can eat more than half of their own weight in food every day. So they also have 5 hearts, and they produce about 2 to 3 cocoons per week. This just all together makes them perfect for composting. And so you can see here's a homemade red bin that we have for the worms, and then the little green one that you see next to it is like one that we sell, which basically has layers and is easier for people who just maybe have like an apartment complex and have limited space and they want to have it like in their porch or their backyard. And so as I mentioned, my position is a resource recovery technician. And it's kind of unique because it's not a title you'll find across the board. It's kind of unique to our organization, but basically we are like recycling educators, or I guess not only recycling because we also do compost workshops, but community and education community education and outreach is, I would say, what our focus is. Because we, as you can see on the picture on the left, that's my coworker and I attending a health fair event that was held in Salinas. So we take information about household hazardous waste, recycling, sharps. We give away like reusable bags and battery containers. We just try to make sure that people are informed about how they can contribute to reducing waste, because ultimately our landfill is finite space. We're not going to have that space forever. We can't keep burying garbage forever. And so we are trying to expand the life of our landfill by reducing the amount of trash going to it. And the best way to do it is to educate people on how to recycle properly, how to reuse things, how to maybe instead of buying so many disposable items, find alternatives that will last longer. Because as a community and as a whole, individual actions really do add up. And behavior change works better when people around you are modeling that. And so aside from like the community events, we also do school tours and presentations. So normally we would be invited to schools and do like a little bit of teaching about how to recycle properly, and also compost. We normally would take like a bin with a little bit of the worms and other critters that you find in the compost, like roly-polies, and do like a little scavenger hunt within the bin so that students can learn about the different types of decomposers that you find in there. And we also do tours. So our Sun Strait transfer station and our Johnson Canyon landfill are sites in which we would have people go on field trips. And because right now schools aren't really able to do that, we did actually create virtual versions. So if you go on our website, you'll be able to find videos of those tours if you're interested. And so other things that we do at schools are help them reduce waste as well. Not only food waste, but we also work on having them go zero waste. So that transition process, this was Jesse Sanchez School actually became the first zero waste school that we've been able to fully transition. They already had, they're one of the only districts that have dishwashers. So they've been using reusable trays for a long time, but they wanted to go a further step and do even more. So we went in and we trained the students, we trained the staff, and we tried out different containers that would work for their janitorial staff and kind of what system would work. And they saved a lot of money because instead of sending a lot to the trash, it was now being separated. So they are signed up for food waste service. Their empty milk is poured onto those little containers, which is then kind of thrown down the drain. But instead of making the trash heavy and really dirty, it's now dealt with separately. And then the empty milk cartons are being recycled, and the trash amount reduced significantly. Like, I think during the entire lunch period, like from kinder all the way through, I think it was like 5th or 6th grade, they only switched out like 2 bins versus before every like 5 minutes they were having to switch a trash bin. And then they also incorporated a sharing rack where if students didn't want an item, they could place it back, and then another student could come in and take seconds if they wanted it, or they can take it home. And then what we did with them is Salinas Valley Recycle sponsored reusable sporks. And so instead of the spork packets, which usually have like the straw, the spork, the napkin, but sometimes students only want one of those items, and then the rest of it goes to the trash, or sometimes they don't even use it and it just goes to the trash. We were able to make that switch, and it was very successful. And we were on board to actually spread that over to the other schools in the LSL school district when COVID hit. So we're hoping that we can continue that work before students come back on campus. So that's going to be a goal for this upcoming year. And so how did I get here? It's kind of been an interesting journey for sure. I actually am from the Central Valley region. So I don't know if any of you have ever been to like the Modesto area. It's kind of in between Stockton and Fresno. That's where I'm from. I actually graduated from Patterson High School, and I actually went on to UC Davis. And even though I grew up in a rural area where ag is also very big, I ironically did not go into ag at Davis. And it's funny because Anna Sarah was mentioning earlier in her presentation that she really wanted to go into ag, and her family was kind of like, I don't know about that. I was actually the opposite. My dad and his background with his parents in Mexico has been farming, and he loves farming, and he has seen how much potential there is within the ag industry. And they're always supportive in whatever role I've always chosen for myself. But growing up in ag, I was kind of tired of it. I was like, I want nothing to do with this. I'm going to go to college to do something different. And so I set my mind to the health science field. My goal was to become a pharmacist. And so the whole time that I was in high school and even through college, that was my goal. So with that in mind, I majored in neurobiology, physiology, and behavior, and I minored in Chicano studies. And during my junior year, I took a clinical internship study abroad trip to Oaxaca. And that's that picture that you see there with that big group. My major mainly was for people who wanted, to be doctors, researchers, nutritionists, pharmacists, optometrists. So we all got the opportunity during this clinical internship to do public health related things. So we did clinical health brigades where we educated the public about like tropical disease prevention and different things like that. We got to intern at clinics and hospitals, see like their surgical procedures or just regular checkups. It was really cool, and it made me realize how much I enjoyed community education, and that's kind of where my love for it was born. I knew I didn't necessarily want to be in a hospital setting. I wanted to be more in a community setting. And so I was also part of the public health club when I returned from that trip, and I helped found this organization called Hermanas Unidas. We created a chapter in Davis, and it was really like to provide a home away from home for mainly Latinas, but anybody can join, to promote leadership, community service, academics as a pillar, and find support for one another. And so when I graduated Davis, I went to pharmacy school for a year. And after that year, I felt really burnt out. Like I was just so exhausted mentally. And 2 weeks before school started for my second year, I was just really struggling because I didn't feel ready to go back. And it was very difficult, I guess, because at that point, I didn't even know if that's what I still wanted. It was just something I had held on to for so long, and I had never really explored other fields that I was like, if I don't do this, what else am I going to do with my life? But I knew I wasn't ready to continue, so I took a break. I was like, I'm going to take a 1-year break, and I'm going to try to figure it out. And in the meantime, I'll just try to find a job and start paying back some of my loans, because the debt burden was what I think kind of suffocated me at that point. I was thinking about like, how much more debt am I going to accumulate by the end of my pharmacy degree? Am I really sure I want this? I had so many doubts. So I'm very glad that I took that time off and I listened to my gut, because so many times, it's hard to feel pressure from the outside. I mean, like I said, luckily my parents were always supportive of what I needed. But I definitely call that my quarter life crisis, where I started just having so many doubts. So what I did during that year off was, yes, I was applying to jobs, but I soon found that because I was fresh out of college and didn't have much work experience, it was hard to find the positions that I was looking for. Like I was trying to apply to be a health educator or, just different. It's like I didn't have my degree in pharmacy, so I couldn't necessarily go into a pharmacy setting. I didn't have a pharmacy technician certificate, so I couldn't necessarily, work in that setting that I wanted to get experience in. I did get an internship during the summer, but I just wasn't fully accredited to do something like that. And so health education, I was like, well, I like community education, but everybody was requiring at least a year of experience in the field. And all I had were little tidbits that I'd done through college, right? Like a few months here in this internship, a few months there, not a full on like year per se. So that was kind of making me more upset, I guess, or like conflicted, I guess, frustrated, because I didn't know what to do at that point. And so eventually I decided to just apply for any job. I was like, okay, in college I worked as an administrative assistant. How about if I try to find a job at least with that? So that kind of led me to a job with the University of California Department of Ag and Natural Resources, funny enough, under the 4-H program. Sarah mentioned 4-H and FFA earlier. And so I worked as an administrative assistant for the state office. So I moved back to the Sacramento Davis area where they have that. And I learned a lot while I was there, because first of all, even though I went to UC Davis, I never knew about cooperative extension or the Division of Ag and Natural Resources, because it's kind of disconnected. It's a department that is not it's not a college of the UC system, but they're like the community component. And so every county has a cooperative extension, which is where the researchers are at. And they have programs such as 4-H, which is a youth program, and 4-H and CalFresh or other programs. And so I was an administrative assistant there, and I was getting to network with a lot of people, and I quickly learned that it's actually very common for people to have one degree and go into a completely different field for work. And as I was networking, I was getting introduced to other people in different departments, and it really started to open up my world. And I started to really think like, okay, I don't think I'm going to go back to pharmacy school. I might want to reconsider what I can do in ag or even in other fields. And still, I knew that my heart was with community education, which kind of led me to moving out to Monterey. While I was an admin assistant at the state office, I wasn't very happy. I didn't like just being at the desk all day. Even though I learned a lot of great skills, or, it wasn't my thing. So the assistant director at the time there encouraged me to apply to a position that was for community outreach and education with the 4-H program here in Monterey County. It was grant funded, which means it was temporary, but it would allow me the opportunity to make that switch that I had been waiting for. So even though I knew nobody out here, I went for it. And it was the best thing I could have done because it opened up so many doors for me. Once that grant money ended, I had to look for another job. So actually, before I make that switch real quick, that program that you see here, Juntos, that's what I was participating in Monterey County. So it was, we made like a summer academy youth conference. and I tried to partner with other organizations to create opportunities for youth to participate in 4-H, youth who normally wouldn't have cared to participate in 4-H, because a lot of people think it's just animals and livestock, but it's so many other projects you can participate in. So we had like a summer youth race, and it was very, very interesting experience as well. But yeah, that position came to an end, and that's how I kind of found my current job. One of the girls across the hall from me told me, I think you'd be perfect for this. You should apply. And I didn't really know. I was like, resource recovery technician? What is that? I had never looked into the waste industry. I mean, I cared about the environment, but I had never really like, delved deep into it. It wasn't really my background, but I applied anyway. And that's just goes to say, don't limit yourself, because a lot of times we think, oh, I'm not qualified for that. I have no background in that, but you never know. Opportunities and doors just come your way, and you just go for it. You never know. And I've been really happy and grateful for this opportunity. My coworker Estela, who previously was focusing on schools, has been doing this work for over 10 years. So she has a wealth of knowledge and information, and has taught me so much, just going on to schools with her, and I myself learning about food waste and all of these laws that are constantly changing. But I would say the thing that overall connects my journey so far is that love for community education, outreach, and career exploration is actually really big for me. So I'm glad that Letty gave us this opportunity to present. And I hope it made sense. If you guys have any questions, let me stop sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Students, do you have some questions?
Yes. As for the compost you guys have in your landfills, do you guys usually sell it, or what happens to the compost after it's been processed?
Question. Yeah, so it's gonna go to market. We have a company called Vision Recycling on site that gets all of the wood waste, and they grind it, and the yard waste as well, and now the food waste. It kind of all gets mixed on the compost pad, and it's high grade so that it can be sold. The plan is to sell it back to the ag industry, so the big farmers. Yeah, but it part of the SB 1383 law, that's requiring people to like businesses to have their food waste be sent, well, diverted basically, is also for cities to buy compost. So there's also going to be a big market for it within the city programs.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying how there's companies like Taylor Farms that don't, like, they have to throw away their like packaged foods. So do you guys usually get like a lot of that? Because I would never think that you would get like so much waste from that.
Yeah, it's crazy the amount. We like when there's recalls, for example, uh, it it's a lot. Like we get, I mean, there's a schedule of trucks that come in, but it's usually like a big, like the Republic trucks. Have you seen those? The regular garbage trucks that come by? At least one full of those, or sometimes it's a whole semi-trailer, and sometimes they'll come in pallets, sometimes they'll come in boxes, sometimes it's frozen produce, sometimes it's dry, sometimes it's just it's kind of hard for us, because sometimes if it, like those packages you saw, those are kind of easy because we just get the big bags and we just rip it open, and then with the loader we can put it into the machine. But we have sometimes, like with the frozen boxes, the because the cardboard will absorb all of the water and make it kind of heavy and chunky, it will get stuck in the machine. So then we have to put in some extra labor. Or sometimes the loads will come in contaminated too, and we have to make sure that the like metal or wood or other things like gloves, especially now with COVID, masks and things like that, don't go in there and don't get mixed in to keep the compost clean too. But we do get a lot of those loads of food waste. And you can actually also find more pictures, I think, on our website. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I know I've seen a few like documentaries or specials that cover some of the waste that we have, and I know they've been to the landfill before, just to talk about how much food waste is coming in. But I did like towards the end of your presentation, you talking about the networking piece of things, and how important that's been for you and keeping you in this field. And that's why we had students prepare a quick 30-second me. Am I delayed a little?
It's lagging a little bit.
A little. Okay, sorry about that. I'm just going to turn my video off real quick, just because sometimes that's a little bit easier with the lag. But I wanted students to give students an opportunity to present something they've already prepared, which is the 30-second me. And I've had them, so basically it's answering the question, tell me a little bit about yourself,
I
right?
can't hear you, Letty, I'm sorry.
I could hear Letty, so I could say what she said.
All right.
She said she wanted you guys to present your 30-second me. I don't know why I can hear you, Letty, but that's good at least.
Okay, thank you.
Me now?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, exactly. So since my computer's lagging, if you guys want to go ahead and present it, I was going to split you up, but since it's just the both of you, I would like for you to practice that. And then for the speakers, Darlene and Sarah, if you want to just have follow-up questions for them. Did you guys hear that?
Yeah. Okay. Can I go?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name is Cynthia. I enjoy research, can efficiently multitask, and can work with others. I'm always punctual, I'm dependable, hardworking, and will keep a positive outlook. I've bred and raised 2 puppy litters and negotiated reasonable prices with customers. I've raised 3 livestock projects and trained them to show. Along with the team, I have led the school's FFA organization that consists of over 300 members. I'm sure I would be a positive asset to your company, and I hope you will consider hiring me. Thank you.
Yay, good job.
Hi, my name is Alejandro Ramirez. I am responsible, hardworking, dependent. I have worked in landscaping for most of my life, having a lot of experience with trimming, doing anything from pavers to concrete. I've also been heavily involved in my mock trial program, where we do a lot of mock trial is a program pretty much based on like going to a court and stuff and learning about law. And so I like to enter maybe in a law profession within the ag industry. And I would like to be I believe my skills would serve you guys well if you guys gave me the opportunity. Thank you.
Awesome.
And Darlene and Sarah, if you want to ask some follow-up questions for students, or I can ask a few as well.
Okay, Cynthia, how do you think your experience with animals and raising animals can help you in another field?
Well, I've always been interested in animal science. I really think I would want to be a veterinarian. So I think since I know how to work with so many animals, because I've worked with dogs, horses, rabbits, goats, so many other different things, I would know basically just the basics of how to work with them and how to care for them. So I think I already have a little bit of experience in that area. Yeah, that's pretty much.
And Alejandro, I'm curious, have you found any kind of similarities between mock trial and doing landscaping? And like, have you learned anything that kind of helps across both areas?
So I've worked in the Monterey area mostly. So there seems to be, when creating contracts or meeting with clients, you always have to maintain that law because clients can sometimes be very difficult and delicate. So for example, if a tree were to fall over to the other property, there's a risk of there being a lawsuit. So having that law background would majorly help me. Especially, I'd like to create a landscaping company. So using my skills in law that protect me more in the law area. So you sometimes you can't really talk it out with words. A lot of the clients, especially in Monterey, will take you to court. So knowing how to defend yourself in court is very important.
Wow, great answers, students. I love it. I think, Alejandro, especially as a business owner, that's going to serve you well.
I just want to say, I just want to say I'm very impressed with both of you. Thank you for showing up and your attention. I know it must be hard with finals and all the stress, and best of luck to you and happy holidays, stay safe. But it looks like you're very bright and dedicated, and I'm sure you will get very far in accomplishing whatever you set your mind to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, students, it's time. I know you guys probably have to get back to studying, but thank you so much for being here today and for preparing that 30-second pitch.
Yeah, that was you both did a great job, and just know that you know, you deserve people's time. So, you know, take your time, and they want to hear from you, and you deserve their time. So, you know, it's like, don't ever feel like, oh, I'm scared to do it, or I have to rush. Just go for it.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. You have a great day and happy holidays.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Goodbye.